constitutional republic.
We don't want to live under a world government
that everyone who is born or is allowed to be born would be born to serve the state.
Valerie Ann with the Truth Exposition Show.
And the most fundamental problem we have in America is that there's no longer a free country.
It's about enslavement.
How does that make you feel? Insecure?
Stand up, get involved, and take the system back.
Welcome, listeners, to Saturday night's Truth Exposition. I am your host, Sheila Zilinsky, joined by the one and only Renegade Smith as we fill in for Val Ann tonight. We have a very special treat for our listeners. We have on the program the renowned Fritz Springmeier, author, lecturer, minister to mind control survivors, West Point graduate, and true patriot. Welcome to the show, Fritz.
Oh, hello, and hi to all your listeners. Glad to be on. Thanks for the privilege.
Yeah, we have a huge listening audience that are anxious to hear you. So let's jump right into the show. Just want to check if Renegade Smith is on the line. Renegade, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, excellent. So, Fritz, you've been touted in some circles as really the progenitor of exposing mind control, and your knowledge on this subject is so staggeringly vast. And it's clear that people really know, they need to know the things that are being manipulated far beyond even what they can comprehend. But we'd like to start off with asking you, how did you first come across all the information about mind control? And then I kind of want you to springboard into how you learned about government mind control.
Okay. Well, in terms of Illuminati trauma-based total mind control, I mean, when we say mind control, people have all kinds of different ideas of what we're talking about, but I'm talking specifically here about a mind control that's probably 1 million times more powerful than what the person on the street is going to think of when they hear the word mind control. This is a total mind control, and it's trauma-based. In terms of that trauma-based total mind control, I came face-to-face with it back in 1991, excuse me, when I began working with these 4 women. They were teamed in the Illuminati, and these 4 women were trying to leave that mother of secret society. The problem is just like certain gangs or crime syndicates or intelligence agencies, you just don't leave the Illuminati. But they expect that their members are going to stay in place and do as they're told. Why? Because they're put under this total mind control. So
right.
So one of the things that I noticed is even though we made significant progress in taking down this total mind control, I came over the years to recognize that their programmers and handlers were so confident that this mind control would stay in place, that we couldn't pull it all out. And that was one of the reasons why they allowed me to live, is I could see that they were just like, let this guy test things. He'll just show us if we do have any flaws, but he's not going to be able to do anything. And that's when I first came face-to-face with it, is when I was trying to help these 4 women. Now, what happens is that the Illuminati, being so secret as it is, it doesn't have storefronts, or it doesn't have organizations that are directly itself. What it does is it works through semi-secret organizations that have fronts themselves. So it's like peeling back an onion. They're in the core of the onion, and so you got all these front organizations, and some of those front organizations are like the CIA. And when you go in and look at the type of people that were recruited and started the CIA, and am I still on? Can you still hear me? Okay.
Yeah,
good.
you bet.
Okay. The kind of people that were recruited in both, like MI6 and the CIA, were your aristocratic lords, upper class, your Yale people that was like Skull and Boners,
right?
And so they're not getting the common person, but the control is in the hands of like the DCI of the CIA, was George Bush, who was a member of the Order of the Skull and Bones. Well, what is the Order of the Skull and Bones? Well, there was a break-in into the Skull and Bones tomb, that's the name of the building, there on the Yale campus where the Order has their rituals, and they went into a room, and there on the wall were things written in German, and they wrote those down. Well, it turns out that the writing that was up on the wall was the ritual for the regent level of the Bavarian Illuminati. In other words, what I'm saying is the Order of Skull and Bones is a chapter of the Bavarian Illuminati. What is the Bavarian Illuminati? The Bavarian Illuminati itself is kind of a front organization for these Illuminati bloodlines. These Illuminati bloodlines, when I started in working with the mind control, a person is not really a person. They're like a robot, and this robot's assigned a number. And part of the code, it's just like having a driver's license number or anything else. Part of the number, right, it gives the generations that person's bloodline has been under the mind control. And these generations, the numbers were large enough that you could tell they went back to antiquity. So some of these Illuminati bloodlines go way back, and then insiders were telling me that the secret genealogy of the Rothschilds goes back to Nimrod, and then I was like, well, how can this be? But then I was able to trace the basic path of how that happened, so there was some truth to it. But so we have these powerful families of antiquity that were treated by gods, and the name Illuminati means illuminated to divinity, and they have created our world system, and through the ages they've controlled it. There's no time in history where the elite, the people running things, the people that are making the crucial decisions and things, there's no time where they said, you know what, we're tired of running the world. Let's just sit down and let the serfs and the slaves and the common slime of the street run things. No, they never did. We kind of thought that they were going to do that with the American Revolution, but you look at all of our first presidents, they were all of that upper class elite. And you look at their families, and they all go back to these. In fact, in my Bloodlines of Illuminati, I show a genealogy chart showing how 25 of these presidents are closely related, but I show how others, besides those 25, go back to European royalty too. So they secretly pulled a fast one on us, made us think that that the common person had taken control of our lives when these powerful bloodlines continue. And these powerful bloodlines, back in the ages of Pharaoh, when you were Pharaoh, you needed to control your child, because he was going to have control over an empire, and he was going to have control over these priests of these mystery religions and whatnot. So they developed the mind control, and this mind control has been done for many centuries, but it's in the 20th century they actually were able to put it on a scientific basis. It was being done in a cruder form before, and it works off of trauma, making a multiple personality. And I have a reference book. I'm not at home, but in my library at home, I have a reference book that starts in 1791, giving books and papers. It's a bibliography, a total bibliography, and it's a pretty good-sized book, page after page, like 150 pages of references. There have been all kinds of books and dissertations and whatnot about multiple personality disorder. Multiple personality disorder, they have bamboozled us to think that a child just goes into the shower and he turns on super hot water and because, it startles him, that all of a sudden he develops another personality or something.
Right.
No,
right.
What really happens is the child's mind has to be guided by the programmer to invent this other persona, this other name, this other history. That's all guided. It's not something that just accidentally happens because the child had a bad day. This multiple personality disorder has been something that the Illuminati's been doing to their own people for centuries, and multiple personality disorder has been known about for centuries. So the clues were there, but nobody was able to put it, say, okay, this clue means this. So that was what I was privileged to do. Was I was privileged to take a lot of the information that was just lying under the surface of things and say, hey, you see that? You see that? Look at that. Look at this movie, The Manchurian Candidate. Look at some of these other movies. That's what we're talking about here, They're showing this to us. They're doing it right in front of us. It's not even a secret, but nobody has the, you have to get over the hump. You've got to get to a certain point where you can see it. It's going right by everybody. So
Fritz, let me jump in and ask you a question here, because you talk about two things. You talk about the royal bloodlines very extensively in your books, and you mentioned there are 13 families in the generations. Of course, there's other linkages of the Illuminati families. For example, you mentioned in one of your writings that the Rothschilds, their secret genealogy goes back to, again, you just said it earlier, traces themselves back to Nimrod. Talk a little more about that. And I guess, would it be fair to say that the Illuminati is then a continuation or maybe an extension of the mystery religions, which had supreme councils from India right to the British Isles? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because, this is linking very powerful Luciferian occultic lines such as, black magic, and, it all ties in with mind control. So can you kind of touch on all that?
Sure. If we go back thousands of years ago, and you're starting to see, like 7,000 years ago, the urban centers come into being. You're starting to seeing people like Hammurabi come up with rules for governing and so forth, and control. You're getting into controlled societies, and people were studying out, how do I control the masses? How do I keep the people in my country, my empire, so that they will follow? And one of the names of it is the Babylonian system. That's where the religion and the king, the government and the religion, work together. The religion says the king is God, and the king says, listen to the priest, so they back each other up. They lock the people in. And so one of the big tools that they discovered was how to use occult knowledge and create these mystery religions. Knowledge is power, and they would tell people, oh, we've got secret knowledge, and then you join this mystery religion, we'll give you the secret, say. And
like the Masons.
It was a control mechanism. Pardon me?
It's kind of like the Freemasons. They do the same thing.
Exactly. Book, like, you're aware of Manly P. Hall's book. I know, Sheila. Anyway, Manly P. Hall's book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, talks extensively about the mystery religions, and in several of his books, he talks about how there was a group of men that they were like a committee that oversaw all of these different mystery religions. All these mystery religions were control mechanisms, and in turn were controlled. Well, that was the Illuminati. The Illuminati was sitting there controlling those to control the people. Those mystery religions were really control mechanisms for the elite, just like religions have often been used as a control mechanism. There's different ways you can, you can use a police force or a military force to control people too, but how much better if they willingly give themselves to a religion, and they're much more motivated to obey than if you're having to keep some policeman there with a bayonet.
Right.
So, that was how that fits in, and the Illuminati itself is simply, and they've said this numerous times. I've seen it said by people that have come out of it, or even people that are still in it, that the Illuminati is a continuation of these mystery religions, and the rituals show it. So they continue practicing these mystery religions. It's an eclectic thing. So what they will do when they create someone who's under mind control is they will create the best front personalities for that. Well, typically the best front has been to create someone who's a super Christian, create someone who's maybe a minister or somebody who prays fervently, that never has any problems. They're on top of their Christian faith, those of us that are normal, we have to deal with reality. We can't dissociate problems, but I've met some of these super Christians that it's like their minds just dissociate any of the traumas that they're going through, and they're just like they're so obnoxiously in your face about being so purely lined up with how they're supposed to be, but that's that good front, and then they will create deeper and deeper layers with different aspects. At one level you might have what's called anarchy level coven activity, which is just a local occult coven, and then deeper you might get hierarchy activity, which generally will get into Satanism. I know people don't like that word, sometimes they say, oh, Fritz, that's your opinion, it's Satanism. No, it's not my opinion at all. That's just what it is, we have people that sacrifice people. They sacrifice and drink blood. They worship Satan. They do satanic things, and no, that's their religion. They're the ones that have chosen it, not me. I'm just telling you what I've discovered. Take for a little child to sacrifice another little child. What does it take for an adult to look another human, and let's say, people have talked to me about these sacrifices, and you might have a little blue-eyed, pure innocent little girl that's the victim for the sacrifice of the coven. What does it take for someone to sacrifice a pure innocent little child like that? A normal person couldn't do it. You go crazy. Right. So one of the purposes of the trauma-based mind control is they splinter the mind into all these disassociative pieces, and they program them, and they make some of those pieces into sadistic, satanic alters, satanic personalities, and that's how they're able to get these personalities to actually carry this stuff out. They're not a normal person as you and I. These fragments of the mind aren't living every day in the real world. real-world life breaks down the mind control. This is just a little part that's been programmed to be a Satanist. It's been programmed to be sadistic and to do, and there's many different rituals during the year. So one altar will be assigned to a specific ritual. So the different personalities won't even be present at all the different altars. It's all broke up. One personality from one festival and another ritual will have another one. And it's even more complicated than that, because during the ritual, they will change altars. They will switch personalities. So there might be 10 different personalities involved in a ritual. It's much more complicated than what people can imagine.
So you could. It's kind of like I was just thinking as you're saying about the different personalities, how they come about. How many people do we hear of that have schizophrenia or multiple personality disorders that are, sitting in, loony bins or whatever? I mean, sure of them, I'm sure some of them can be possessed by a demonic entity. But I think now from what you're saying, there might be a lot of people that are, MK Ultra victims that are actually sitting in, that have totally snapped. I mean, that's possible, exactly. Right? That these people
Oh yeah, they're putting all kinds of. They're saying bipolar. They're saying,
right.
Stress syndrome. They're putting all kinds of crazy labels on this. I haven't even made a comprehensive list of all the different mislabels. They'll label it anything except what it is, and that is trauma-based total mind control. And
so, Fritz, we want to take our listeners through sort of a mind control 101, if you will, because you're touching on a whole bunch of really excellent things. And we want to kind of also touch on the mind control techniques that the Illuminati have used and are currently using and what people need to know about that. So sort of a mind control 101 and then how they used them.
Fritz,
okay.
Before you talk about that, keep you had said something exactly what Sheila just brought up. On one of your videos, you basically stated that their mind control techniques are so up to date in technology that they're able to strip us of our own thoughts. I mean, that's I think you were on the Prophecy Club when you had said that. But could you kind of add that in with what Sheila's saying too, because it's kind of goes hand in hand.
Okay. Well, the reverse of that is, and this is what I strongly advise people, and it's what's protected me. In my teenage years, I was very intense at trying to find out the truth and what my beliefs were, and I solidified a lot of thinking in my mind. And so, when I went to West Point, they had their discipline or their. It was really actually a form of mind control itself. The military, they break you down. At West Point, they don't call it basic training. Your first 2 months are called beast barracks, but it's sort of like going to basic, right? Where the first 2 months I was there at beast barracks, I ate the same amount of food all during that 2 months as you would in one meal. In other words, I was starved for 2 months under intense physical training. They try to break you down. But I knew how I thought, and I can show from, I can prove, because of the things that I wrote, like the essays I wrote in English class. They didn't succeed at changing my thinking because I knew how I thought. But I watch people who don't know exactly what they think, and they are easy prey for the media. They're easy prey. They do some of this type of mind control on adults. Now, they usually start out with children, but they have different places where they pull adults in. These hypnosis clinics, one of the uses of these hypnosis clinics is they pull people in, see how subjectable they are, and if they can be worked on. And over a gradual period of time, they suck these people in that are good candidates, and they will eventually rewrite their personalities and put
Wow.
them under a simile of this mind control. So, yeah, it can go on, but I would strongly recommend to our listeners, find out what you believe, know what you believe, and then if there's a foreign thought, if there's any demonic entity trying to come in and give you a foreign thought, or even if somebody were able to beam something through the air at you to try to implant a thought in you, it's not going to stick, because you're going to go, that's not the way I think. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's what.
Oh, yeah.
That's where people can protect themselves. Let's see.
That's another thing right there that
direction
people
you
don't
go?
believe. What you just said about beaming thoughts into your brain, like, people don't believe that's possible. It's very possible. It goes off of frequency and off of wavelength.
Right. That's a whole another topic.
Now, Sheila was asked, basically MK Ultra Mind Control 101.
Okay.
Me and her were kind of discussing. We're talking with you, like, there's different levels of mind control. I have stated this before. We're all mind controlled from the day that we're born, the day that we can understand, your whatever human language you speak. If you are not, if your parents aren't awake to what's going on, you're going to fall under Illuminati mind control. And until the day you can actually wake up with original thought and step outside the box and question everything, and just like you said, know what you think, know what you believe. What are looking at from the bottom level of it, the most minimal form of mind control, all the way to the top, the trauma-based mind control, where they're using these people as assassins, or getting toted around like who was that? Bryce Taylor was kind of Henry Kissinger was like. Right. What can you give us the examples of the levels as you work your way up, like television, your low-level video games, and kind of how it would start, where people could start really looking at it and saying, hey, I have been under control my whole life. I need to step outside right now and do something about it.
Okay. Yeah, we're changing channels here. We're switching from the Illuminati's trauma-based total mind control, and now we're switching to describing the low-grade type of control over our thinking that happens from the time we're born. The way I describe it to people is I ask them, who built your frame of reference? From the time you were born, you were having your worldview, your frame of reference built by the people around you. But their worldview had been constructed by the world previous, So everybody's growing up with these preconceived ideas. And what the Illuminati do is they know how their culture is building those worldviews, and they operate outside of that box. So until people are willing to step outside the box and say, hey, maybe somebody can, maybe truth can be outside that little box of my worldview, then they're pretty safe and secure. Like one of the things is that people grow up thinking is the government's your friend, the news media is constantly saying how they're our friend. You turn on, and I don't have a television, but I get plenty of opportunity in various places to bump into news shows and whatnot when I'm visiting various places. And
well, you're not missing anything. You ever watch Honey Boo Boo? You're not missing anything.
Right, but they'll come on in the news and they will present something to the audience. Oh, here's how you can save money, or here's how you can get a job, or they're your friend. They're always trying to pass themselves off as we're your friend, and oh, by the way, we uncovered this scandal. We're there to try to protect you from. We're gonna, like they say on some of the stations, all the news that's fit to print or all the news that's fit to hear. We're gonna give you everything. Well, until you realize that they're controlled. The media is owned by the Illuminati. You go in and look at their the front organizations that the Illuminati works through, the Council of Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, Bilderbergers, and then I mentioned the CIA. You go in and look at who's controlling the media, and you know, it's only a few corporations. A lot of people have become aware that the corporations are running things. It's like I got this Greenpeace book about a year ago that documents how California is run by the corporations. But what I'm trying to do is let's go that next level. Who's controlling the corporations? And then when you see it's interlocking directorates of these powerful people I'm talking about, then you realize that they're actually it's these bloodlines. And I might go back and refer to something you mentioned. You mentioned 13 families. And that's kind of misleading, perhaps. That might be a misnomer to say families. What we're looking at is more like tribes, because some of the Rothschilds go under the Rothschild name. I was at Portland State University Library today researching the pioneer days, and there was one of the Rothschilds that was a mayor in a town here back in like the 1880s. So, that's an example of someone who carries the actual Rothschild name in our area. But we have other Rothschilds here in Oregon that they go back to the name before Amschel Bauer changed his name to Rothschild. The original name was Bauer, so there's a branch of that tribe that goes by Bauer, and they can spell it B-A-U-E-R, which is the German way, or they can spell it B-O-W-E-R. But that's just an example of how it's more like tribes. They're bifurcated, and you look at the kings of Europe. That one king, I'm forgetting his name, back before Queen Victoria, he had a different woman every night, and he had literally not hundreds, but probably thousands of bastard children running around in England, and they keep track of all these bastard kids. And so, you can't really say that these Illuminati bloodlines are a particular surname, because it goes beyond that. They're really like tribes. Anyway,
let me ask you a question really quick. When we were down in Philly, it was funny because I had so many questions I wanted to ask you when we had met. And, I'm telling you, I could have sat and talked with you for days. And I just mentioned to Sheila about this too. Like, this one question I want to ask you. There's a couple people out there that think they have the 13. Now, I know you said if they break out in the tribes and go under different names, but you pretty much had mentioned the solid 13 names. Astor, Bundy, Freeman, Collins, Rockefeller, Rothschild, Lee from China.
Right.
How did you figure out that these were the actual bloodlines of this Luciferian group? Because it's not like they promote themselves. I mean,
exactly.
You can see them in the Federal Reserve, like you got a couple of them sitting in there. Of course, because the Federal Reserve or the central banks, reserve banks, they control the world through the money. You control everything, and that's what they're all about: power, control. But how did you figure it out? Where did your research lead you? What did you get from it, and how did you compile your list?
Well, I had started becoming familiar with the powers that be, or I call them the powers that should not be, back in the early 70s. And started researching the Illuminati for a long time, and then was compelled to actually put some of my research into writing. So I'd done thousands, maybe tens of thousands of hours of research, who knows. And in 1991, when I met these 4 women that had been teamed in the Illuminati, the first meeting that I had with them, I said, look, I know that there's the Illuminati have elevated 13 bloodlines to be special. I mean, that goes back to on the pyramid on the dollar. There was a couple people. There was one person that had come out of Satanism in the 80s that had said that there were 13 families. There was an Australian author, was it Final Notice? But anyway, he had written a book, and he had said there were 13. So, people had mentioned, okay, there's 13 bloodlines, so I'm aware that there's 13 bloodlines, but I wanted to hear from the insiders. I wanted to hear from 4 people that, what are the actual names? But I took and I printed out by my computer all of these powerful bloodlines that I've been investigating: Collins, Russell,
Onassis, Kennedy.
Onassis, Kennedy, Rockefeller, Rothschild. Rockefeller and Rothschild are real easy. So I had...
Duval,
I had a whole page
Dune.
of names. And then Sassoon, And then I'm like, okay, would you... Because I wanted to make it as easy as possible, because although I didn't know about the mind control, I kind of suspected that they might be scared to just verbalize it. So I handed them the sheet of paper and I said, would you guys just circle the top 13 for me? And they started circling.
So you were already well aware of the mind control when you were doing your research on the bloodlines.
No, I wasn't. No, I didn't. I wasn't aware of the mind control until I started working with these women to get them out of the Illuminati, and it was a process, because everybody was telling me, oh, okay, this stuff can be easily dealt with and blah blah blah. I had no idea how total this is and how unbreakable it is. I mean, it's really hard to work against. You start making any progress, and the person you're working with goes into suicide programming. And I had to work for a couple years working with Cisco. I had to watch her constantly every second, because if I turned my back with that suicide programming running, she could commit suicide. And her system was constantly trying to shut down. It was, so I had no idea.
Can you explain
how powerful. Pardon me?
Can you explain about her system trying to shut down? Like you're talking bodily functions, like heart, stuff like that, lung function, like that. Is that what you mean by her system was trying to shut down? That's how strong this programming is.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much to say. I mean, how to even begin to say it? But you have cutting suicide programs where they grab like one time she grabbed a razor blade, and before I could stop it, had slashed herself like 30 times. Another time she grabbed a bottle of pills and had a whole handful of pills to stick in her mouth before I grabbed the pills away from her. So you got that kind of suicide programming going on. But then you also have, after we had done some deprogramming work, her body just shut down. Her heart and body functions were, she was laying there in the bed, and I was just struggling to keep her alive. In fact, that's how she actually discovered that she was under this mind control. I'll explain it. Her father, who was a programmer, and he was a Grand Master in the Illuminati, he had programmed her to die when he died. He wanted his secrets to go with him. That's very similar to like the Chinese emperors. When the Chinese emperor would die, all of their household servants and their family and everybody would be killed with them. Remember that?
Right,
they would all mass slaughter or burial. Well, it was sort of along that lines, in that she was programmed to die when he died. Well, he died, and her system physically shut down, and she was taken
Wow.
to the hospital. But nobody could figure out why she was dying or nothing functioned in her body. They couldn't find what the source of it was, and they had her on life support. Pardon me?
Now, would you consider that the power of the mind, or would that be actually a demonic attack trying to take you out?
It's all of the above. It's
right.
That's the thing, is when we get into this mind control, let's go back to one of your previous questions, and that was for me to give you kind of a 101 course. One of the critical things that the listeners need to understand about this mind control is that it's not one technique. What they have done is they have taken hundreds of techniques, every known method that you could possibly conceive of how to control a person. They have taken every method, and then they have engineered it structurally to work together. So
Wow.
You may have one type of mind control working, but another one's also working to support it, and another one. That's why if one method fails, you've got several other backups. All these methods working together, structurally engineered together, lock the person in totally. That's why it becomes a total mind control. So yeah, they use demons, they use demonology, but they also use body programs where you can abreact. You know what I mean by the word abreact? Abreact means that you go through something. Like, let's say your father died, and you got very, very sad because your father died. Okay, and 5 years go by and you've forgotten it. But then somebody comes and they shows you a picture of the funeral, and you start thinking about your father dying. You start crying again. You abreact. Okay.
Right.
So they build these body functions. They take the body down almost to a comatose, deep level, where they put these programs in that deal with the heart shutting down and so forth like that. And when you hit these programs, they activate the body to actually go in. You could call it an abreaction, to actually re-go through what it went through before. Except now that the person's not in a programming center, when their heart shuts down, they die. In the programming center, they could keep them alive when it got to a particular point. They could revive them. But, so her body was shutting down. She was in the hospital. Nobody could figure out what it was, but they kept her alive on heart support. And then there was a psychologist who was new to her practice, and she really put a lot of effort into trying to figure out what was going on. And between Cisco's system and the psychologist, they figured out enough to realize, she's got mind control programming. She's a multiple. They only understood the basics of it, but they understood it enough that they were able to keep her alive and then start working on therapy. And she had been in therapy for several years before I came into her life. So I was very fortunate that there had been a lot of groundwork done therapeutically by a professional before I got involved, because I didn't know anything when I got started. I was learning in the School of Hard Knocks. And I went to everybody that said that they had answers, and I learned from a lot of different people. But I also learned that a lot of people only had part of the picture. And so I had to start putting the picture together from a piece here, a piece there, and putting it all together, which is what you see in my books that you guys kind of mentioned. My formula book and its sequel, Deeper Insights. That the lessons that I passed on to everybody in those huge books came from so many different sources, from working with so many different program multiples and so many therapists, and you know, it was a long journey to learn this stuff.
Now, let me ask
Fritz,
you, Fritz,
very quickly, let me jump in here for a sec, Aaron, and ask a quick question here. Very quickly, what is your sense of how many people have been affected by mind control in the U.S., and is your sense that this is really going on worldwide? Can you kind of put that into perspective for our listeners, please?
We talked about this one, remember, Fritz?
Yeah.
You blew me away with your numbers.
Well, and I haven't been thinking of numbers or what numbers I have given in the past, so, and I am getting a little bit feeble-minded in my, as I'm, so I don't know, I think I've mentioned maybe 4 or 10 million, easily 4. That's totally conservative. 10 million is probably still ultra-conservative here in the United States. You know, it's a high percentage, and especially because so many of the younger generation they're no longer doing it to their bloodlines. They have gotten things sophisticated enough, and they've traumatized the population long enough that you know, everybody's becoming dissociative and hypnotized, you know, however you say it can be hypnotized. But they've gotten to the point where they're mainstreaming it, and so it's being done to a lot of people. Can you just talk about for our listeners, though? I mean, we realize that it's going on at different kinds of levels, but for those people listening out there that are saying, well, how would I know if I'm mind controlled, or what kinds of mind control are just generically going on in the public? Can you talk about some of those like low to medium level kinds of mind controls for people that are listening, and what things they can be aware of? Are we still talking about trauma-based mind control, or are we just talking about how the media can
that'd be two different things.
Yeah, in general, though, for people that are listening.
Like in general.
Which point?
The trauma-based mind control.
Oh, the trauma-based mind control. You know, there's a lot of little clues, but the clues that when I give them to people don't really mean anything. But I would recommend, and I will answer the question more specifically, but the real good way of somebody answering it is, you know, I recommend that they get my Deeper Insights book, which is a 600-page book, and they can go to my website, which is pentracks.com, and I recommend that because it's really, if the mind control is functioning like it should, it's undetectable, and the person won't know that they have it. But in fact, even if they look at the clues, and they would get an aha and go, oh, hey, a lot of those clues that Fritz lists match my life. Then, if they get that realization, they could throw themselves into suicide programming.
Exactly.
So it's like a catch-22 for me. Just to realize that they're under mind control could throw them in. They have across the board. Every one of these people that have been mind controlled have suicide programming that is meant to activate if they discover it. So it's like a catch-22 for me to you know, I'm not really trying to tell the person, okay, I want you to, you need to have the information like what I present, but you also need to have some support system there so that, you know, you can deal with knowing this. But you know, the clues that I would give could, you know, for people are going to go, oh well, you know, that anybody could be that, and that's true in a sense. And the best analogy that I have to your question, to try, you know, I'm not trying to avoid answering it. I can give lots of answers, but the thing of it is the answers are not as meaningful as me explaining the bigger picture. You know, white men came to the New World, you know, even perhaps before Columbus, but definitely in 1492 with Columbus. In 1880s, when the U.S. cavalry needed to hire scouts to track Indians, they hired other Indians. After hundreds of years of being around Indians, the white men still could not track them like an Indian could. And when I got Cisco's programming alters free, I was amazed at how, you know, if we went into a restaurant, she could say, see that person? They're under the mind control. They've got this altar. They've got this programming running. She could look at all those little clues and know exactly what it meant. So if you're someone in the know, there's all kinds of clues. But you know, but if I give the clues to the audience, they're just going to go, well, that doesn't mean anything. You know, well, yeah, you have to understand the context of the clue, and the other clues are with it, and you know, it's not an easy thing to detect. It's
how about family?
But someone who's a multiple, they're going to be dissociative. They're going to find things in their closet that they don't know where they came from. If you're somebody under this mind control, maybe as you're walking along the sidewalk, somebody will say, you know, let's say your name's Billy, and the next thing you know, they're saying, hi, Frank. Well, the fact that they called you a different name might mean that under a different circumstance, you were Frank to them. You see what I mean? That may be a clue that you're a multiple. Someone who's multiple, from the outside, if you're watching them, they may be, like I was saying, like this one girl. She was a super Christian, and her teacher was telling me, hey, this girl, you know, in the class was talking about how she was this great Christian, and like 30 minutes later, I was watching her in the chow hall line, and she was cussing like a sailor. And then I heard a few more things I asked a few questions of the teacher, and I go, you know what you're dealing with? That girl's a program multiple. So then I met with Cisco, and I met with that girl and the teacher, and sure enough, she was not only a multiple, but she had tried to get help because she was being sexually abused and she was being taken to satanic rituals. And, you know, in the schools they say, report this or do this, you know. Well, when she tried to do that, it backfired. And she realized there wasn't any place she could go because the wolves were guarding the chicken coop. You see what I mean?
Right.
They put these things in place where they say, oh, we're trying to protect the children, we're trying to protect the women out there, they're being sexually molested or blah, blah. But if someone who's a real victim of this mind control tries to get help, what happens is the abusers have their people there, and it doesn't work. And so here she had tried to get help and hadn't. But that was a good clue, and the teacher hadn't recognized what it was. It was that her behavior changed from one moment to another dramatically. You know, that could be a clue that you're dealing with a multiple. Of course, you know, they give the excuse, well, that's bipolar. Right? But, see, they've mislabeled a lot of these things. So, anyway, learning disabilities, you know, emotional distance. Maybe they've got an infatuation where they collect. You see somebody like this one lady who's got Star Trek program. You go into her house and she's got Star Trek stuff everywhere, you know. Or maybe you go into somebody's house and they're just like totally fixated on dolls. You know, they've got this doll program. So that's another clue there. You know, if a person's totally fixated on something like Wizard of Oz or whatever, you know. Another clue would be just who your parents are. If your parents were CIA or high up in the military or in one of these organizations, that does the mind control programming, you probably have been subjected to it.
Right.
I'm thinking of so many stories right now. Some of these people have been so grateful that for this information I've given them because it explained their lives, If you see phobias, there's certain ways that they roll their eyes. These people will have sleeping disorders. They'll lose time. They might use the pronoun we when they're talking, and their emotions may be locked up. You might not see them. These are the type of things. There's so many. I came up with some. It was a worksheet for therapists to get their biography, but I also came out with a list of clues that the person can use too. One of the things about these people that have been subjected to mind control is that generally they won't not have any childhood memories. That's been pretty consistent. I'll ask them, well, when do you start having childhood memories? When do you remember the name of your? Because I know for myself, before I moved overseas, I grew up in Nepal. I grew up in Nepal between 5 and 10, but before I moved to Nepal, I lived here in Oregon, and I had a happy childhood, and one day I just started writing memories. When you're a kid, I chased a butterfly. I found a worm. I caught a daddy longleg. Nothing that's really significant for an adult, but for a kid, when you're exploring the world, they're big. I started writing these memories. I realized 1 out of 3 days I can remember. I can remember my first grade teacher, my second, my third. I got clear memories of all of this time period. That is a normal person. But
I didn't know. Do you have to change positions in where you're at? Because your phone is like chattering.
I'm sorry,
guys. We're having we're definitely having some issues. Not surprising. We're going to jump into a quick break. We've got a very fast break, and then we'll try to get that sorted out, and we will be back in a flash.
Get ready for the epic new documentary adventure ride of your life. Shade the motion picture. Up you into the globalist domain and embellish a Burmese film.
Nothing in this world works the way you think it does. Nothing. Governments do not operate the way you think they do. Banks do not do what you think they do. The police department is not here for what you think it is. Nothing in your world works the way you think it does.
We are here to let them know that their world government has been identified, and they thought they'd include the world economy to bring in a worldwide police state, but instead it's going to bring them down.
You have to stand up, speak out. Shade the Motion Picture. Order your copy of the DVD today at shadethemotionpicture.com.
This is Mercy. If you're listening to this message, warriors, you are the resistance. Warriors, you are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink. Read about it in the Sovereign, newspaper of the resistance. Available now at newsstands.
Okay, we are back, listeners, on the top of the, we've got a last half an hour on our show left. And just wanted to let people know here, Fritz, do you want to give out your website address for people, and can you spell that for people so they can look into your books, etc.? Can you do that?
Yes. Am I back where you can hear me? Okay.
It seems to be okay. We definitely had some sound issues here. It was coming in really jarbled. So yeah, just go ahead and give out that information and spell that for our listeners.
My website is pentrax.com, which has my books that they can order. on the subject of mind control. That's PENTRACKS.com. Pen like you would write with a pen, tracks like you would leave in the snow. Pentracks.com. And if a person really, and people need to understand this issue, because this issue of the mind control is so important to understand the false flags and how the Illuminati make money and how they keep their secrecy and how they keep their members under control and create assassins and drug mules, sexual kittens, how they control society, on and on. There's so many things that are being done with this mind control. It's just absolutely incredible. They need to, this is the missing piece. This is the missing piece that they need to understand, and they need to be able to protect themselves. So, I really recommend that they go on there and get these books. I didn't write them for myself. I wrote them for the world, and the information's there.
Well, let's talk about how popular culture real quick, Fritz, is inundated with mind control, like entertainment, Hollywood, so many things. Talk a bit about Illuminati-run Hollywood's involvement in mind control slavery and why you say that Disney's perhaps one of the greatest deception of all time. Touch on that for us.
Yeah, trauma-based mind control is the name of the game. All of your big names, and some of them have come out, like Roseanne Barr has just come out publicly and said she's a multiple, that's going through therapy. Some of them, it's just real obvious that they're multiples. Jim Carrey, and they even put him in a movie, Myself and I, but Jim Carrey's an obvious program multiple, So the MPD is the name of the game. These people in Hollywood that they're giving us as idols are actually, sad to say, they don't even have a life of their own. All these youngsters are thinking, oh, I want to be like so-and-so. They don't even realize this person doesn't even have a life of their own. Wayne Newton, the wonderful singer, and he never wrote a check his entire life. He was totally controlled. His finances were totally controlled. He's an example of a program multiple. So, no, you really don't want the life of your idols, people. And they use these people in turn. These controlled people are used to steer our thinking in the direction that they want us to go. So nobody is given a platform where they could speak to the public on mainstream television and spill the beans. They're all controlled. They're all afraid. So that's why you don't have anybody really stand out. I mean, Roseanne Barr, she did quite a bit considering, I'm surprised she did as much. But then she's has a reputation for being outspoken. She doesn't give a flip. And she's been that way her whole life. So she seems to have been cut more slack than others. But they use these people then in turn to steer our thinking. Oh, this is what's cool. Oh, this is what we should be buying.
Trendsetters.
Yeah, trendsetters, exactly. I watched how they use this. That's why I say, they use this trauma-based mind control just to make money. I watched them program people here in Portland just to go patronize certain restaurants. Their restaurants. There's nothing. I guess you wouldn't say illegal about somebody going and patronizing a certain restaurant, but why do some restaurants stay in business and others don't? It's because they're able to control the clientele through mind control.
Look at McDonald's. Their food is junk, and they're billion burgers. You couldn't pay me to eat there anymore. And these people, I thought it was something in the food. But if you actually look at the programming that goes on TV, they're going after our children. And that is such a basic level. And right there, to the listeners, that is a form of mind control. They're going after the children with these Happy Meals and these commercials and Ronald McDonald jumping around and doing his thing. We could even go into the subliminals that they use. That's all forms of mind control.
The interesting thing is, and you and the listeners know it. I've seen this repeatedly. People say, "Oh, I'm too smart to be fooled by ads," but then they watch the ad and they go do it.
Exactly. Or they go buy that perfume or the cologne or the shoes or the washer and dryer.
Fritz, just talk about what's the end game. Like, what is really the playbook? What are their goals, the Illuminati and their front organizations? And do you think these clandestine totalitarians are trying to bring about global control? You know, are they really planning a total takeover at a certain point in time? And kind of walk us through what kind of scenarios are possible. You know, how could mind control possibly be used in a takeover scenario? So, like, what's the ultimate goal? What are possibly scenarios? As we've got 20 minutes left in the show.
Okay, well, one thing that I'll set on proper footing is these people created the system. One of the bloodlines of the Illuminati is European royalty, the Merovingians. And you can imagine how much power British and Dutch and the rest of these European royal families have, even today, even if republics have been created. Some of these countries still, the aristocrats still are in existence, even though they may not be running the countries, and they still have power. So these people created the system. So it's not a matter of them taking it over. They're the ones that have created the Pepsi Cola. They're the ones that created Kodak. They created these companies. They don't have to take them over. Although, if somebody does create something, it's really easy to infiltrate and take over. So, where are they going with this control? Well, one thing is they're addicted to power. Power is more important than money. These people have the means to make money. They don't, they're the ones that run the Federal Reserve. They can control the creation of money. So it's not money that they're after. They can. Although they are greedy, that's true too. But power is more important. Power is more important than money. And then where do they want to use that power? Well, the rest of us are like ants. If you listen to some of these people, and people that have been around these insiders have said this to me too, it's not my opinion, they'll talk about how the insiders, to them, we're like ants. And if you were walking on the sidewalk and you stepped on an ant, you wouldn't think anything of it. Nor do they. We're cannon fodder, we're a consumer, we're nothing to them. And their policies are genocidal. That sounds really, it's like slapping the listener in the face, but they're genocidal. It's the extinction of the human race. And if you look at Monsanto and some of their organizations of what they're doing and how they're polluting, and they've got this dialectic where they're in charge of like the EPA. They create these supposedly protective organizations like the EPA to help us, and then these organizations don't protect us. They pretend to protect us, but they're destroying us, and they're destroying the human race. And that's
so they create the problem and the solution, and then put like under the guise of environmentalism and depopulation kind of tactics. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Look at vaccine. Look at the vaccine agenda. Depopulation, population control. And they want you to think it's a very good thing. Meanwhile, you're putting a bunch of junk in your body that you don't need, just like fluoride. Another one of the little tactics.
Yeah.
They have many weapons that they use against us. Many weapons. Oh. And you know what? It could be the simplest thing, like music. Music's used against us every day. It's in everything that we do. You go on an elevator, hear music. Every TV commercial's got music. All your movies, all your TV shows got music. You turn on your radio, it's got music. You turn on talk radio, they're going to have music on your commercials. I mean, these people have their fingers in everything. That's how much, like you said, they don't care about money. They've conquered it. It's all about control.
If somebody becomes aware of what really is healthy, raw fruits and raw nuts and raw vegetables, the things that are really healthy, and you understand what happens when you eat sugar in terms of how it gums up the blood and blah, blah, blah. Making long story short, if a person goes to a supermarket and starts looking at all the processed food, all of the canned food, toothpaste, even your vitamins have sucralose. I mean, you start looking, it's like they have slipped in poison into everything.
Yes, they have.
There's something contaminating everything in our life. It's like it's designed to kill us. And then we wonder why cancer rates are exorbitant, why people are getting all these debilitating diseases, lupus, asthma, on and on, Why? It's because of what they're doing to us while pretending
lupus is linked to aspartame. Lupus is actually, and MS has been linked to aspartame poisoning.
Yeah, and the aluminum that we have in our environment's been linked to Alzheimer's. So, it just, the information's there, but all around us, it's like they're trying to kill us from 100 different angles. And people are just blithely walking around in ignorance, not protecting themselves, letting them do it.
So,
touch on that. Go ahead, Aaron.
Well, I want to touch on what you're saying. As far as their end game, the time frame that they have. Now, I've read that they wanted the New World Order accomplished and done by 2015. But if you look at this Obamacare thing and the RFID chip, see, that's got to be part of the scenario too, which I consider the mark of the beast. It's an etching. They're talking 2017. So I think, honestly, that their plans are getting foiled as people wake up to what's going on. They have to pull the plug because they don't want to get found out. These people live in fear of a world waking up because there's going to be a massive witch hunt once they realize what's really going on. But what kind of a time frame do you see, Fritz? Like, we know they want their New World Order. We know they want a one world government, one world military, one world currency,
one world religion.
One world religion, which it would fall under your Luciferian religion. When do you see this thing going down? Like, is there a time frame that these people have, or are they just kind of going with the flow?
And what kind of scenarios can we expect?
The original time frame, and I had repeated insiders tell me this. I saw repeated documents. The original time frame was 2000. For whatever
that
reason,
didn't happen.
that was delayed, and then I felt like they set it back like 5 or 10 years, and it's been delayed again. They're having some major problems, and
people waking up.
Well, more than that, they've had some major glitches in their timetable, and I don't know how much that's going to set them back. It's kind of interesting because when you go to H.G. Wells' book, Things to Come, he talks about, when the New World Order comes in, there's going to be resistance. There's going to be two parties. There's going to be one group that in the Illuminati that advocates the fast track and one advocating the slower track. And so, I try to keep my ear tuned to what's happening as far as that timetable, and it just seems to me like they've been destabilized. They're trying to come up with alternative plans to fill the gap in for things being kind of shaken up, and we might have 5 or 10 more years beyond what like you're saying in 15 or 17. I think it may even go another 5 years. In fact, who knows, because things are kind of falling apart in certain areas for them, so I don't know how well they're going to patch things up. But they're definitely having some problems. And I really don't think that they appreciated how out of hand the internet would get, and they're going to have to rope this wild frontier in.
Exactly.
Well, Obama's got a plan to shut that down, doesn't he?
Yeah, the kill switch.
Well, Fritz, we've got about 10 minutes left in the program. We want you to just take the floor. Tell our listeners what you think they really need to know. Again, we kind of touched on what are some possible scenarios, et cetera, but what do you think is crucial for the listeners to know in the last 10 minutes? And, of course, we want to have you back soon, and we'll follow up with everybody's questions because we were inundated all over our board. But you have the floor, Fritz.
You just talked about.
Okay, one of the lessons that I learned really right in my face when I was given a vacation by these people in federal prison was you have to take control of your life. If you don't take control of your time's going to take control of you. Right. And so you have to take control of your life. Just quit mumbling and feeling sorry for yourself, but look reality. Look at what's coming down the pike. Look at the kind of things that we're talking about. But get back in the driver's seat and take control of your life. And when you take control of your life, don't passively take and accept all the garbage that the world's been feeding you. But take control of your life and start eating healthy. That means you're going to have to study what is healthy, how are they taking all this stuff? How can I get good water? How can I get good food? How can I turn my life around? You turn your food around and your water, and your health is going to improve. And then you're going to, and your morale is going to improve. And so there's so many things that people can do to take control of their life. But, we have to take control of our life spiritually, physically, and mentally. We have to clean those things up, or as somebody said, purify them. And that's a good word, is to purify, because the battle starts here. You can't change the New World Order. You can't change the powers that should not be. But you can start changing yourself, and they can't control you. There's so many things that they're doing to control us. They're trying to weaken us. They're trying to give us bad health. They're trying to... Well, you need self-sufficiency, people. Become self-sufficient. Become your own person. Know what you think. Become a spiritual person. These are the type of people that they can't control. They want to turn you into an animal. If you look at their plans, the written plans, they say, we're going to turn them into animals because you can control an animal. They don't want someone to be spiritually elevated, because a spiritually elevated person is going to be, is going to have angelic beings protecting them, and is going to be tearing down their strongholds. So that's where people need to start this whole thing is, and they can do it. But take control of your life. Quit feeling sorry for yourself. Quit being intimidated. One of their big things, these people like to create fear. They're fear-based themselves, and they try to instill fear in all of us, and don't let it. Don't let the fear control you, because one of the things in studying their tactics is I noticed that they study our fears and then they take advantage of it. So if you don't want something to happen, the last thing you want to do is fear it, because your fears draw what you're afraid of towards you. So you've got to learn how to step out in courage, and then you do these kind of things, and you'll be amazed at the progress you can make.
Hey Fritz, I want to ask you a question. You've mentioned so many things throughout this, the past 90 minutes that I would love to dive into, but we're running out of time. I mean, when me and you talked in Philly, I had asked you, and this is one thing we had kind of brought up, but I wanted to get you to explain it more. But would you possibly come back on so we can kind of get into the guts of the MK Ultra program? Because there's a lot I'm sure myself, Sheila, and other people would love to question you about, like, just for example, what I had asked you in Philly about, how did you come up with the number? And I remember I looked at you and I said, I myself couldn't even work with 100,000 people in my lifetime. Like, how does MK Ultra spread? I mean, that's something, for another day,
Sure.
And, the other question I would love to have asked you is about Cisco. When you were working with her, did you get any problems from her programmer or her handler? Like, I'm sure they were trying to fight
They came
back.
right into the house. Her programmer came right into the house and told her, hey, if you stop this, we'll give you a career in Las Vegas. He wasn't even bashful. They did it right in front of me. Yeah, the people talk about, Fritz made this whole things up. He's on a drug trip or something. No, for years I saw this stuff all around me. It's like does your mother exist? Of course. Does this stuff exist? Of course. I was around it. And there were some humorous moments too. Rex, who was an enforcer, he came by to see if he could pick her up, and do the triggers to get her switched to the personalities that would come out to the road and that he could pick her up. But I was there staring at him, so he ran back into his pickup truck, and it was the 4th of July, and for some reason he went down a couple blocks to stop. I guess he thought that a couple blocks was all he had to drive to get away from me. But where he stopped, some kids had thrown a whole string of firecrackers, and as he opened the door and stepped out, the firecrackers went off, and he stepped right into the string of firecrackers going off and jumped back into the truck. I mean, there were humorous moments like that.
And of course, this guy was under mind control himself.
Oh yeah, Rex is under mind control too. Yeah, but I met some of these people. I mean, it was kind of creepy, kind of. I'll be honest,
I'm sure.
It was creepy meeting these people. But
hey, we got 5 minutes left. I would love to do another show with you, Fritz. Maybe we can set this up, because I would love to go into the guts of this, because there are so many things that can be really brought about that I really think that the listeners need to hear. Maybe we can set this up, but in the meantime, why don't you give a plug for your website, your books, and where people can get a hold of you, find you, any questions, just that they might have, where they can get a hold of you.
Okay, the first thing that I would plug is the first book that that they should get is, it's got a long title, and I marched to my own drummer on this. I could have had a short title like everybody else, but I kept it specifically for a reason. It was The Illuminati Formula Used to Create an Undetectable Total Mind-Controlled Slave. I call it the Formula Book for short. 500 pages. They can go to my website, pentracks.com, pentracks.com, pentracks.com. They can order the formula book. Its sequel, which is 600 pages, is Deeper Insights. The Deeper Insights on the second half has all of your different therapeutic problems and how to deal with those therapeutic problems. So, like eating disorder. These people will have eating disorders. They'll have flooding of memories. They will have to deal with mirrors internally in their minds. They have to deal with safety issues and thoughts of suicide. All of these kind of things, these issues are dealt with in the Deeper Insights book. So if you have someone that's under the mind control, or you are dealing with it in therapy, get the Deeper Insights book. And then I just encourage people to more important than getting my information is that they get their spirituality right, because the battle is actually a spiritual thing at the heart of it.
Yes.
They need to love truth. It says in the Word of God, it says, not that truth will save us, but the love of the truth will save us. It says that in 2 Thessalonians. That's so true, I could hand you something that had the truth in it, but that's not going to help you. But your love of the truth, you will go out and seek it, and you'll keep pursuing truth until you get to it. So that's what I want to instill in the listeners, is that hunger for truth. That's what's going to protect them and their families.
Well, that's wonderful. And, it's really interesting. An Illuminati kingpin once said, and I think you said this, Fritz, that the whole world is a stage and all these things are manipulated. Yep. And I think it's really important for people just to kind of, start questioning things and independently researching things. And I know all of us at Freedomizer, one of the things we try to do is, make people aware of what's going on. And, Fritz, thank you so much because you touched on incredible things. You talked about so many ways that the Illuminati run corporate media. They inundate us daily with this steady barrage of different kinds of things. So anyway, I think it's very important for people to question things, quit being politically correct, quit buying into all these agendas that are perpetually pumped out all the time. Start questioning things, and you're so right about the spiritual part of it. I think, whether or not people here believe in God or not, these Luciferians, they do believe in Lucifer, and so that's just irrefutable. So very interesting. And again, we would love to have you back very soon. And we just want to thank you again. You are an incredible person. You've had quite the challenges. You definitely have been persecuted, and we just want to tell you God bless you. And we really look forward to having you back soon. We're going to post all your info on Freedomizer on our Facebook pages, and we want to thank all our listeners for calling in tonight. And thanks, Renegade, for Valan's new intro. That's awesome. Anything else on the final note, boys?
Thank you, and good night to all your listeners.
Thank you so much. It's always
AJ, Renegade Smith is cutting right out there, so I don't know what happened there, but he's all jarbled there. Fritz, did you have anything you want to say before we wrap up the show?
Thank you very much for having me on, and we'll do another show, Lord willing.
Lord willing. Well, God bless you, Fritz. And again, I encourage everybody to definitely get these books, get the Bloodlines of the Illuminatis, get the other two books, start making yourself aware. And again, we just want to thank everybody for coming on tonight.
Get ready for the epic new documentary adventure ride of your life. Shade the Motion Picture. A view into the globalist domain and embellish and Burma's film.
Nothing in this world works the way you think it does. Nothing. Governments do not operate the way you think they do. Banks do not do what you think they do. The police department is not here for what you think it is. Nothing in your world works the way you think it does.
We have to let them know that their world government has been identified, and they thought they'd include the world economy to bring in a worldwide police state, but instead it's going to bring them down.
You have to stand up, speak up, speak out. Shade the Motion Picture. Order your copy of the DVD today at shadethemotionpicture.com.
Let's push for liberty.
Last push for liberty. Monday midnight, 12:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. Tuesday night, 11 p.m. Central Standard Time. Freedomizer Radio. Bitches. Let's push for liberty. Let's push for liberty. Yeah.